It is over in Minneapolis, and the hometown fans not happy. The Vikings go down. They play close games. Talk about it. They're in one-possession games every week. Same thing here. Dallas without Dak Prescott. Cooper Rush, 325 and a couple of touchdowns, and the game winner when they were down 16-13 with a minute to go to Amari Cooper. Vikings kicked, took the lead 16-13, but Dallas comes down the field, pumps it home with a minute to go to steal victory from the jaws of defeat. Dallas has not lost since opening night. Both Dallas and Green Bay lost week one, haven't lost since. Cowboys 6-1, getting it done. All right, let's bring everybody in. Ryan Wilson, Jonathan Jones. JJ, what does this game say about the Cowboys who found a way to win without Dak Prescott?
Yeah, offense and defense are really good. Trayvon Diggs was getting hit up a couple of times there in the first half, and he shut things down in the second half. We're going to see what that foot injury was there at the end of the game. Obviously, game just ending, so we're going to have to monitor that for Defensive Player of the Year candidate. But when you look at what this offense did with Cooper Rush, I mean, they went 7 of 14 on third down. He stayed in manageable situations, didn't get 100 yards, rushing yards from their two fantastic backs, Zeke Elliott and Tony Pollard. They were still able to win. The Minnesota Vikings are a good team. They are at least an average team, or slightly above average. And when you are missing a Dak Prescott, that's a huge deal. And the fact that they were able to survive without the services of Dak Prescott and with Cooper Rush, that, again, we talked about this in the beginning of the show. He played well against Houston in the preseason, in week 2 of the preseason. This says a lot about this Dallas Cowboys team, Ryan.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. And I think it says a lot also about the Minnesota Vikings, a team that had every opportunity to get a win here without Dak Prescott at home, and they just couldn't do it. I mean, you mentioned it, JJ. How are you going to go 7 for 14 on third downs for the Cowboys and then turn around as Kirk Cousins and the Vikings go 1 for 13? That
unacceptable.
Is unacceptable. The running game never got really going. Kirk Cousins never really got going. You can talk about the penalties if you want to, and did that have some effect? Sure. But at the end of the day, it never should have been that close towards the end. And oh, by the way, how are you not tackling Zeke Elliott on 3rd and 11 just outside the end zone?
And Anthony Barr had a great look at
Ooh,
it, too. Yeah.
Heaven help us. So, yeah, there were no good things to come out of that if you're Mike Zimmer and the Vikings.
Look, you know, if you keep playing to the level of your competition, you're going to get burned.
Every week.
Right? I mean, that's what they do. They play good game. They went out of Arizona. Probably outplayed Arizona in their building, missed a 36-yard field goal, lost. They played down to the competition with the Lions, who haven't won a game all year. Should have lost, pulled it out, and got a win. You know, if you make every week a coin flip, you lose a lot of coin flips, and it seems like this was one of those games. I remarked to you guys, I'm like, I never felt like Minnesota would actually lose the game until suddenly they're down with a minute to go. They let them hanging around, and the kid had alligator blood and took him down at Cooper Rush. All right, so for Dallas, it says they're good, their defense is good, and they can find a way even without Dak, even if they don't have to win every game 40-35. We just said Minnesota played a level of competition, but what does this say about a team in Minnesota that's now 3-4, JJ?
Well, Justin Jefferson absolutely has to be more involved. I mean, the fact is that he had 2 catches on 4 targets for 21 yards. This is Justin Jefferson we're talking about. He's coming off a fantastic rookie year. You have to feed him more. You have to at least target him more. Whether they're clamping down on him or not, for him to only come out of this game with 4 targets is not good enough. They got 100 rushing yards out of their running backs, and yeah, Kirk Cousins, 1 of 13 on third down, is never, ever going to do it. That was an embarrassing performance by this offense. And I talked before the game about how Minnesota's defense, right in the middle of the road, but really, really good at third downs. They were the best team in the NFL in terms of allowing third downs at 29%. They allowed 50% tonight. So I think Ryan said it best. Mike Zimmer can't look at this game and be happy about any phase of his team's performance.
I look at Justin Jefferson. I think JJ's right. I mean, look, this is a great player, but he didn't look like a great player tonight. We saw at least one play where it seemed like he just stopped on the ball. It wasn't like they keep showing and he's open and this kind of thing. It felt like it just wasn't really his night. And Kirk Cousins was efficient completion percentage. He didn't throw for any yards, and you got to be able to make some completions on third down. What is Minnesota just not doing, either on offense or on defense? Bad inopportune penalties, bad tackling in mid spots. It just seems like they just don't come up big. But we got to do better than that with our analysis. What are they lacking?
No, you're exactly right. It starts with things like missed tackles, things like stupid penalties that put you in situations where you're giving up points against a backup quarterback who previously had 1 completion in 4 NFL seasons. But you touched on it with Kirk Cousins. The throw to Justin Jefferson where he didn't run through the ball, that was an issue. We saw Kirk Cousins, he was pressured for most of the evening. The offensive line didn't really hold up that well. And when he had time, he was not making great decisions with the football. All those things taken together gives you what you saw tonight against a Dallas defense that admittedly has played much better this season. I think there's got to be some concerns because we were talking about this before the game, EK. You and I were team Kirk Cousins. He's a top 12 guy. He looked like a bottom 5 player the way he was there tonight. Again, against Cooper Rush. And I think the problem here is this was a chance to remain as one of the top 7 teams who would make it to the playoffs in the NFC as we sit here through 8 weeks of football. And now they are on the outside looking in, and they have a lot of work to do. At Baltimore, at the Chargers, Green Bay are their next 3 games. And something magical has to happen for them to remain in the playoff hunts because if they get 0-3 over that stretch, that feels like a wrap.
And they're not going to have any of those games in primetime, are they? Because that's something that we have not discussed is Kirk Cousins in primetime.
Now, you said he was 1 for 13 on third down. He had 12 incompletions for the game. So does that mean every incompletion was on third down and he was perfect otherwise? Because, I mean, he's 23 of 35 for $184 and 1 touchdown. Like, he's not taking shots down the field.
Right.
Like, we've seen this with guys, especially with rookies and younger guys or whatever. Like, you got to sometimes take a few shots. You got to get some completions. You got to get third downs into first down without coming off the field and having to punt the ball away. I mean, I say 23 of 35 for $184, 1 touchdown, no picks, so he's not turning it over. He's not making mistakes, but that's not a $30 million a year guy. What do you give me with Kirk Cousins tonight, JJ?
Yeah, he just wasn't good enough. You're talking about a Kirk Cousins who has to be a 70% passer. And that's close, 23 of 35, but it's not
close.
It's close. But you're also going to need, if he's at 184 yards on 35 pass attempts, that's nowhere near the sort of yards per attempt that you need from him. That's where you have to find Justin Jefferson more. You're going to have to take those shots. You're going to have to pull what the Indianapolis Colts have been pulling the last several weeks, throwing it up, throwing it short, letting your receiver work back, and getting a defensive pass interference. Won't show up in the passing yards, but it'll get you down the football field and help your team, if you can't convert in legitimate ways, getting them dishonestly. And that's not something that we saw tonight from Kirk Cousins, from the Minnesota Vikings offense, and they suffered for it.
All right, I'm looking at the teams that will be the 7 seed in the NFC. I'm making myself a quick list because we have 6 teams who we think are going to make the playoffs. It almost feels like 6 of the 7 spots are spoken for, and we're not even halfway through. But Dallas is 6-1. The Cardinals are 7-1. The Rams are 7-1. The Packers are 7-1. The Buccaneers are 6-2, and the Saints are 5-2. All right, so every other mid-range or lousy team in the NFC, you're all in there for 1 spot. Eagles are 3-5. The Giants and Washington both have 2 wins. The 49ers are 3-4. The Seahawks are 3-5.
But getting Russ back.
The Bears are 3-5. The Vikings are 3-4. The Panthers actually have 4 wins. I guess they'd be it, but nobody thinks they're any good. And the Falcons. Which one of these lousy are the Vikings still in this thing, JJ?
I'll tell you this. We are penciling in the Saints, and they're coming off a gigantic win at home against the defending Super Bowl champs. But they maybe just lost their starting quarterback to a season-ending knee injury. And they may be going with Taysom Hill for the rest of the season with Trevor Siemian backing him up. Trevor Siemian played well tonight. All I'm saying is we have seen a Saints team that crushed the Green Bay Packers and that just beat Tampa Bay. But they have probably lost their starting quarterback for some significant time, if not the rest of the season. There's 17 games in this. So
Even better, 2 of these lousy teams if the Saints fall back.
That's the only point.
Still alive here?
I think Minnesota's still alive. I think the Seattle Seahawks are still alive. I think if San Francisco can conjure up some magic, that they're still alive. But I don't see anyone else in the NFC East. I don't really see anyone else in the NFC South, and certainly not anyone else in the NFC North, Ryan.
Yeah.
Are the Vikings still alive, despite the fact that they are 3-4 and they just gacked one up to a Dak-less Cowboy team at home in their own building.
I'm smiling because you asked me that question about the Seahawks about 3 hours ago. And I said, absolutely not. The Seahawks are done because the Vikings obviously going to win this football game. But to sort of piggyback on what JJ just said, if you ask me pick 3 for the final 2 spots, and it's going to be the Saints, the Vikings, and the Seahawks, I'm okay with the Saints. We know that Sean Payton can win without Drew Brees. We know that he can do it with Taysom Hill if he has to replace Jameis Winston. We saw what Trevor Siemian was able to do today as well. I don't trust the Vikings. I trust Russ Wilson coming back. I trust that offense getting better with him there. Geno Smith was able to pull out a win today. I have no idea what to make of Minnesota. You cannot lose at home to Cooper Rush and a Dak Prescott-less Cowboys team and play the way you did and expect anyone to take you seriously. If I'm picking 2 out of that 3, it's going to be the Saints and the Seahawks as we sit here.
All right, let's wrap it up this way, and we'll go all the way back full circle to the Cowboys, right? Yeah, this is a team that had a bad year last year when Dak got hurt. They had some other injuries, and it just wasn't their thing. This is a team that every year everyone says, all right, the Cowboys. And like Charlie Brown trying to kick the football, you end up flat on your back if you've been touting the Cowboys for, I don't know, about 25 straight years. But now you look and you say, nobody in the NFL has fewer losses than the Cowboys. They're a one-loss team, and they haven't lost since the opening Thursday. Like, do you consider them as good as the Rams, as the Bucks, as the Packers, if you want to put the Cardinals in there as the Packers, or are they a half a head or a full head, a step head, whatever you want to call it, behind the Rams, the Bucks, the Packers? Ryan.
I think the good thing about Dallas is they play in that terrible division. And if you look at their schedule, EK, they don't have a lot of tough games coming up. They have at Kansas City in Week 11. We'll see who that is. And then their next really tough game, if you want to call it that, the Raiders in Week 12 after that, the Saints the week after that, and then finally in Week 17, they have the Cardinals. Otherwise, it's the division opponents and some not very good teams in the other conference. You can see right here. So I think they have a great chance not only to obviously make a deep run in the playoffs once they get there, they can work their way into this number 1 seed if they get lucky in some of these games against what we're calling quote-unquote tough opponents as we look at the schedule right now. I don't know if the Chiefs are going to give them anything, but I think they're in great position based primarily on the fact that they're obviously playing good football, but
So,
they're in the NFC East.
If I'm translating that, are you telling me the Cowboys are as good as the other teams if the road to the Super Bowl goes through Dallas?
Yes.
And it might because of their schedule, because the Rams and the Cardinals and that division may beat each other up. The Bucks, they obviously have some kryptonite with the Saints in the regular season, and maybe the road isn't going to go through Tampa. Green Bay, we've seen them in spots, and if Dallas can somehow be right at the top of the heap, then maybe. JJ, Dallas, they are what in terms of looking down the road a little bit here?
Well, I mean, look at who they've beaten. Look who they've played. They played the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to a 2-point game when Dak Prescott had a banged-up shoulder and the defense got 4 turnovers. They beat the Los Angeles Chargers in the next week. They went on the road to New England against a very difficult New England team, and they got that win, and now they're getting this victory. They're not running a gauntlet that's similar to like what the Buffalo Bills are facing right now. Would you love to see this Dallas Cowboys team facing the Bills and the Titans and the Chiefs in consecutive weeks? Sure, and then we would absolutely know who the Dallas Cowboys are. The fact is they have beaten everyone that's been in front of them, minus the defending Super Bowl champs, at their place, and they lost by 2 points with a banged-up quarterback. And then tonight, against a pretty decent Minnesota Vikings team in Minnesota with Cooper Rush, who we had really nothing to draw on in going into this game, didn't even get 100 rushing yards from their backs. They still won this game. I think that you put the Dallas Cowboys up there with the elite of the NFC based off of what they've done. And then you add in what Ryan Wilson is saying about their road ahead and how they can be very well positioned to have the NFC playoffs go through Dallas. Yeah, I think that they're right up there with everyone else. I think you have to say that.
You know what they remind me of? They remind me a lot of the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah.
They have a lot of guys on offense and they're potent. I'm still not quite sold on the defense, although maybe they're better than I think. And the division is going to be over soon if it's not over already. And they may get a chance with a lot of wins in their division to host playoff games, and they may end up having a really great season. To me, Titans, Cowboys, that's sort of, there's a lot of similarity, not perfect, but there are a lot of similarities of who they are in their conference based upon the division and how they measure up. So Dallas gets a win without Dak. Minnesota leaves a golden opportunity on the table on a night where it looked like all night long they would find a way to get a W, but they let Dallas hang around, and then eventually they got bit in the last minute by Cooper Rush. All right, you want more? We have more. We have a great podcast, NFL style. It's the Pick Six Podcast. Ryan's on that thing. He's terrific. You download it. You subscribe. You enjoy it.